Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with a DFS preview for this week's WGC Dell Match Play, a unique event and a week that you gotta approach a little bit differently than most. So here in this video, not only going to break down a few of the players that you probably want to keep your eye on, but more importantly, the strategy aspect of playing a match play DFS GPP. So going to break down the scoring, some of the differences between a regular week and then what we're gonna have on our plate this time around. Make sure you understand how to build lineups optimally, and then towards the end, go through what we usually do, right, in a core play or a value play video. Gonna combine everything into one, go group by group, point out a few players that you might want to keep your eye on here for tonight and tomorrow here at these GPPs, and then of course, just a few of the overall strategy aspect things towards the end too. So this will be an all-encompassing video. By the end, you should be an expert on what to expect this week and ready to build some of those lineups and hopefully cash out. So that's the idea there. A few housekeeping notes before hopping into it. First off, we're going to have our DFS live stream. That'll be tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. So rather than being on Wednesday, right, with the early start, don't forget that, early Wednesday morning will be locked. We'll be going live tonight. So if you have any questions, you want to talk about chalk, weather, any of that fun stuff that we typically talk about on our live streams, make sure to stop on by for that. But on top of that, we also have our community contest, which for this week, I've gone ahead and doubled the size. There's a link down below if you want your lineups reviewed on Monday for the weekend review stream. Every Monday, we go through last week's results, trying to learn a little bit from the process. Make sure to get down in that contest. It's a $1 entry. There's 100 max entries as of right now. We're right around 50 entries in, and the top 20 are going to get paid. So if you want to get become a part of that contest, play for some bragging rights, a little bit of cash, but also be able to have your lineup reviewed there on stream Monday, make sure to get in that contest too. There's a link down below. But we've got a lot to talk about here with this video. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. First and most importantly this week, let's make sure we start with the strategy aspect and all know how to build these optimal lineups. So we've got ourselves the bracket in front of us, all 64 players, and a few things to note. So we've got ourselves the group stage first. That'll be the first 3 days of this golf tournament. And then afterwards, you're gonna have your regular bracket style single elimination matches. So it's a little bit of a hybrid event, right? You've got that group and then of course the knockout stage, similar to like a World Cup kind of format. And all of these matches here are going to be per head-to-head, just single player match play event. So this isn't a team kind of event like the Ryder Cup, President's Cup. These are just going to be one-on-one matches. And if you're not familiar with match play, golfers are going to play every single hole, and whoever has the lower score in each hole is going to earn a match play point. And if you end up tying the hole, or having it is the official term for it out there, there's not going to be no points assessed. And by the end, whoever is winning that match gets a true point for the group stage. So they're going to play all 3 matches round robin style, and whoever has the most points at the end of the group stage is going to advance from that pod. So if there's a tie, they're going to have a single hole, sudden death elimination sort of match to determine who moves on to the round of 16. But by the end, you're going to have all 16 winners from the group stage all play in a bracket style format from there on. So you can see the bracket in front of you. There's no reseeding after round 1. So whoever wins that group moves into that exact slot. And we have a pretty good idea of some of the potential clashes coming up. Like most tournaments, they're seeded beforehand based on the top seed. So you can see group 1, we're going to call it, it's going to be that Scotty Scheffler group. Group 2 would be like a John Rahm. They're on opposite ends of this bracket here, right? They're in opposite quadrants. Pretty much, if all the top seeds ended up winning, they'd end up meeting there in the final 4. That's the idea there. But of course, this is the most random event of all of them out there. In fact, over the last 5 years, the number 1 seed in a group, or just the highest seed in a group, has only won 33% of the time. The lowest record there was right around 18% for the 3rd seed. Believe it or not, the 4th seeds, like the lowest seeds in all of these groups, have actually had more success than the 3 seeds. So it's a little bit strange. It's extremely volatile, as you can imagine, in this head-to-head kind of format, much like a March Madness, right, over there for college basketball. A few other things to note is that scoring this week is a little bit different than most too. Instead of getting awarded points for birdies, pars, so on and so forth, it's all based on holes won. You can get streaks for winning 3 holes in a row. You can get an extra bonus for winning a match. Also a bonus for going out there and not losing a hole during one of your matches. So similar kind of boost to what you're going to get for those 4-round contests. But most importantly, you get a massive bonus at the end of your round for any holes not played. So let's say you're winning by 4 holes with 3 left. Well, they're going to call that a 4-3 victory, right? You're going to have won by 4 points with 3 holes to go. And for those 3 points, sorry, for the 3 holes, I should say, you're going to get 1.6 points per hole. So those end up adding up a lot by the end of the event, and you're only going to get those if you actually win that match. So the loser, if you end up losing 8-7, that sort of thing, you're not going to get all of those extra bonus points for completely tanking the match. So that's how the scoring is a little bit different there. But now, how do you build optimally? And this is where a lot of people get it wrong this week, and why this is one of the larger edges that we have when it comes to PGA DFS, is you have to build lineups that can get as many players as far into the tournament as humanly possible. And, you know, that seems pretty straightforward. It seems like most people should be able to go out there and build those lineups, but you'd be surprised. And what that entails is being able to get 6 players into the Elite 8, right? Because you only have 6 players in a lineup, and then 4 of those players into the Final 4. So if you can max both of those out, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to be close to taking down the GPPs this week, if not actually taking them down yourself. So we'll talk through this strategy a little bit later of, you know, exactly how you can do that, but that's the idea there, right? More holes played, more opportunities to score is how you're going to ultimately go out there and have the best lineup this week. Now, making sure we can get to that, you can see that there's 4 quadrants on the screen. So if we're looking at the bracket here, in the top left corner, right, we'll call that a quadrant. Bottom left corner, right, that's going to be another one of the 4 quadrants that we have there. Inside of that, the pod is just going to be a group of 4 people. So just making sure we have these terms down here, right? So a pod's a group of 4 people. Quadrant is a whole fourth of the entire bracket there. We're going to call an adjacent pod the one right next to them. So if you end up winning there out of your group, right, your adjacent pod is who you're going to play there in the group of 16. 4 groups that aren't going to play each other in group 16, but they're next to each other, those are not adjacent pods. So just want to get that out there for terminology. To make sure that you have optimal lineups, okay, you cannot play more than 1 player from adjacent pods. The reason for that, of course, is that if your players both win out of the group stage, you don't want them playing each other in the group of 16. Doing so would mean that there's no way that you could get 6 people into the Elite 8. So that's the first thing you need to make sure to avoid this week, is to not take players from adjacent pods, which again are groups that will end up playing each other if they make it through the group stage. Next up is you have to have at least 1 player from all 4 quadrants. Again, a quadrant is just a fourth of the bracket. The idea there is that you have to have an ability to get 4 players to the Final 4. So by taking at least 1 player in all 4 quadrants is how you can go out there and accomplish that. Now, what rules do you need to set to go out there and do this? Well, first off, they're posted on the Patreon page. I posted exactly how to go out there and do so, but I'll give you guys the idea here too. It's really not all that difficult. For each set of adjacent pods, so if you take a look at that, right, there's going to be 2 per quadrant, so there's going to be 8 total of these adjacent pods. You need to set a role on your optimizer to only play 1 player out of those 8 guys. So you type in all 8 of their names into your optimizer, and then you set at most 1 of these players, right? And you do that for all 8 of those adjacent pods. So those are the first 8 groups that you're going to set. Takes a bunch of time to type in all those names, but it's well worth it if you're going out there and building 150 lineups. Then the next thing you need to do, there's actually a couple ways to set this different roles. So you have those first 8 roles that you have to set. Then you have 4 more roles that you have to go out there and set, which the next 4 you could have guessed, right, is to make sure that you're having at least 1 player from every quadrant. You can either go out there, type in all 16 players in the quadrant and say that you want at least 1 player from that, or you can do it by making sure that you don't have more than 5 in the other 3 quadrants, which personally, I think it's easier to just type in the 16 names, go at least 1 player from the 16 and move on that way. So either way, right, if you want to exclude, you know, at most 5 from the other ones, or at least 1 from the 1 pod, either way, you can go out there and set that group. So if you do that, you're going to have no one from the same set of adjacent pods. You're going to have 6 players that can make it to the Elite 8, but you're also going to have the 4 players that can make it to the Final 4. And after that, it's just choosing the players out there with the leverage that you need, which of course is what we're going to talk about right now, some of the top plays that you might want to keep your eye on. All right, and now let's take a look at some player analysis. So, as we typically do, let's take a look at our key stats, which this week a little bit different than most. It's a little bit more focused on some of the scoring stats like birdie or better percentage, match play record. You can see opportunities gained is going to be a huge part of my model this week, and less about like off the tee stats, less about comp courses. I would say less about approach this week than even most golf tournaments. This isn't a place to go out there and get super model heavy, to go out there and only rely on the numbers. This is the most volatile event year to year, and more than anything, it's more about the game theory side. So I'll point out some of the things that I'm using in my modeling this week, but it's not nearly going to be as important as most. Just want to make that clear to you guys, right? It's a volatile event. It's a lot more about just your regular good old capping. I mean, if you look at the March Madness bracket, right, like no numbers were telling you to play Farley Dickinson, right? No one was going out there telling you to fade Purdue, Virginia, a lot of these top end teams like Arizona that ended up losing there in the first round. You just got to take chances out there. And it's the same exact thing with the match play. And again, we're going to talk about some of the players you might want to take chances on, but you can look at approach play. I think if anything, you look at that 175 to 200 yard range, it's utilized a lot more at this course than most. The greens are a Bermuda with a POA Trivalous Overseed, so similar to PGA West, TPC Scottsdale, TPC Sawgrass, also what we had at the Copperhead course last week. So a lot of crossover courses we can look at from that perspective. Birdie or better percentage, important for match play. When you're going head to head, being able to apply pressure to the opponent is really the name of the game. So the guys that are aggressive and that can post those low scores tend to have a lot of success there. I'm taking a look at Austin Country Club match play record, so how they fared at this event over the years. Pretty clearly going to be important this week. Looking at around the green numbers, this is a difficult course around the green. It's not a difficult course in general, but when you do miss, you're punished relatively heavily here. And being able to save par, of course, is important for having holes in this format. Opportunities gained, another way to look at those aggressive players. That's the amount of times a player hits it within 15 feet on the green for birdie. We've got ourselves shots gained off the tee, which, like I said, is a lot less important this week. If anything, I'm looking at shots gained at short courses. And then for our comps, we've got PGA West, Harbortown, Sawgrass, Colonial, Sedgefield, and TPC River Highlands, which are all short positional tracks that comp very nicely to what you're going to get here at Austin Country Club. So with that being said, I have this sorted way differently this week. We're going to go group by group here. And this group number is just the seed of the highest seeded player. So you can see Scotty Scheffler's group is quote-unquote group number 1 there. You have Jon Rahm is quote-unquote group number 2. Rory McIlroy group number 3, so on and so forth. That's these quote-unquote group numbers. And if you take a look at the bracket, right, they're going to be at different spots, right? Scotty Scheffler is in the top left. You have Jon Rahm at the top right. Rory McIlroy is in the bottom right. So these aren't in order of their actual spot on the bracket, but of that top seed player. So please keep that in mind. So the winner of group number 1 is going to play the winner of group number 16. You can see that there in the bracket too. And group number 1 is one where you're going to see a lot of chalk. It's looking like Scotty Scheffler's everyone's pick this week. He's number 1 across all the modeling. His match play record is ridiculous. It's 10-2-2. It's by far the best in the world at this golf course. So, and it makes sense. He went to college, University of Texas, played a lot of golf here at Austin Country Club while he was there at school, and he should be good here. He should be probably your highest owned player on the slate. Even with that, I have to say that I think it's a tough group, right? Having Alex Noren in your group, who's also been a killer in match play, 11-5, is not a great thing. Having Tom Kim, who is just an electric lightning rod out there, maybe you saw how he played at the President's Cup, is not a good thing for your chances. And Davis Riley is maybe like the most aggressive player on tour. He's like routinely number 1 or 2 in opportunities gained. So he's got himself 3 killers out there, which, you know, is kind of lower his advanced rate there. He does not have the highest advanced rate of anybody on the slate. And a lot of that just comes down to his opponents. So when we get into these GPPs, when we start to try and make some of our plays this week, a lot of it comes down to ownership with Scotty. If everyone's going to play him, if he's going to be by far the highest owned player on the slate, which I think is looking like a real possibility right now. Again, guys, my ownership, player pool, and points are going to be blacked out on here. They are posted on my Patreon page. But there's a good chance that Scotty Scheffler is marked as a fade later on if the ownership gets to 40-50% like I think it might. So I think you really got to play the game theory game here, and you're going to hear that repeated multiple times throughout this preview here. But this is the most volatile format that we have on the PGA Tour in what is already probably the most volatile sport that you can bet on with DFS, right? Maybe NASCAR's got it out there, but it's up there. It's at least in the top 3 when it comes to that volatility. So if you're going to find anybody that's mega chalk, you almost want to automatically fade them. And I know, right, the 10-2-2 record, he's champion, finished in second place his first time ever coming here. There's no way that he can't win this golf tournament, as people would say, right? I would just challenge that. You've seen some heavy favorites really fall flat on their face at this event over the years, and a lot of times it's not their fault. It's they run into an absolute buzzsaw. If Tom Kim, Riley, or Norn, if any of them play lights out this week, and all 3 of them, I think everyone would admit this, all 3 of them are capable of having spike weeks. It might not matter for Scottie Scheffler, right? If he just has his above average game like he has a lot of the time, he could get bounced during the group stage. So just don't get married to these guys that you think are absolutely invincible. That would be my advice there. So in Group 1, I like Joo-Young Kim. I like Tom Kim. I think he's got upside to get through the group stage. You can see I have him at a 23% advance rate. Pretty much the same one for Alex Norn. So if I'm going to pivot off of Scottie, again, I haven't made that decision in full at this point. It's probably the one of those 2. And Davis Riley, if you want to go in that direction, I'm not against that either. I do think he has that upside. Let's go to Group 2 now. So top right side of the bracket, they'll be playing Group 15, whoever ends up winning out of that group. And this is the group of death. You've got ourselves Horschel, who won here a few years ago, Jon Rahm, who's a winner at this event. Ricky Fowler and Keith Mitchell haven't had all that much success at this event, but they're in incredible form, right? There's a reason why they're in the 8K range. So your cheapest player here in DraftKings is $7,900. And this is one where you're going to get relatively even ownership, I would say. I mean, Jon Rahm, I do think might be your lowest owned guy up top. And the reason why I say that is not because he has a super low advance rate. You can see he actually has a higher advance rate than Scottie Scheffler. So despite being in this crazy hard group, right, because Keith Mitchell, my numbers do not like him as much. It's just from a match play format, his game's not the best suited for it. I mean, he'd have to play absolutely lights out, I think, to get out of this group. Jon Rahm's nearly a 36% advance rate. Ricky Fowler, right, even though he's playing well, right, he's 0-1-2 in this format. So, it looks really difficult on paper, right? From the talent level perspective, I think it's undoubtedly the most talented group. But you have 2 guys on here that aren't really good in match play. And then Billy Horschel, he's not playing good at all right now, right? He's losing strokes to the field with the shots gained, which he's more than capable of turning it around. When he won this event, he wasn't even coming in with the best form at that point. But I like Jon Rahm. I have to say that. I think if there's a group to take one of these stud players, it might be Jon, who's won this event, who the form, I mean, he's still number 2 in the field. I know he's kind of having a down, month or so on tour, right? He's not winning every event anymore. We have just such high, lofty expectations for this guy. I think this is the stud to take there. In group number 3, you've got yourselves the Rory McIlroy group. So this is the bottom right quadrant. And this is a wide open group, I would say. I don't love Rory there because I do think that, despite Keegan Bradley's horrible match play record, right, 0-3-6, just as ugly as it gets, Denny McCarthy and Scott Stallings are wild cards to look out for. So they're the 2 players that I have my eye on there. I'm not going to have heavy exposure to any of these 4 players. I don't love how it sets up for them, and then some of the groups around them, I think, could bounce them off too. So I'm just probably going to be a little bit later to that group than most. Group 4's got Cantlay. It's in the bottom left part of the bracket there, the quadrant, and I hate this group too. I have to say, groups 3 and 4 are not my favorite. KH Lee is actually my pick to get out of there at $6,400. So I'll probably be playing him. Probably have some Ryan Harmon too. He's been pretty decent at this golf course over the years. It makes sense for a shorter hitter, an accurate driver of the ball like a Brian Harmon. But Patrick Cantlay might sneak his way into my pool too. Don't love the advance rate. He's 31%, which is actually lower than the average for some of these number 1 seeds. The average is 33% advance rate out of the first round, but I don't hate the play. We'll have to see. Because I'm not sold on a Scottie, a Rory, that kind of thing, I'll probably end up with some Patrick Cantlay, especially because he's overpriced. He's $10,700, which I think is going to make him the lowest owned guy up top if it's not Jon Rahm, right? If Jon Rahm's not going to be your lowest owned player up top, it's probably going to be a Patrick Cantlay. Group number 5, I love Max Homa. We just got to escape Kevin Kisner. Kevin Kisner is the Thanos when it comes to this format. He's 22-6-1. You've got Justin Suh on a heater. Hideki Matsuyama's decent, especially if you put him in the President's Cup. I feel like he's a lot better than his Austin match play record. but I do like Max Homa here. Max Homa was lights out at the President's Cup. The guy is just a much better player now than he was before. So though his record's 3-3, which is it's okay, right? He hasn't really done anything special in this golf tournament. I do think he's got a lot of upside going forward because he's just a better player now. So I like Max Homa there, but Kevin Kisner, I'm probably just going to play Kisner because even last year, not a lot of guys got to him. And look at this. He's got a 30% advance rate. I mean, that's outstanding. He's a player that I have as a higher advance rate than some of these number one seeds, right? You can see just 2.2% less than a Xander. He's got, 3.1% chance less than him. And look, 0.9% chance less than a Patrick Cantlay. I mean, it'd be hard to avoid him, right? So there's a good chance that Kevin Kisner is going to be a huge part of my pool, even as some chalk there. Number 6, we got ourselves Xander, Hoge, Wise, and Cameron Davis. You have 4 solid ball strikers. I don't hate Xander there at all, and I don't hate Tom Hoge at all. Tom Hoge checks all the approach number boxes. He checks the birdie or better percentage box and the opportunities gained box emphatically. So not the best record, but I like some of the stats. I'll probably get there in Tom Hoge. Again, it's not a huge stat week, but when somebody's checking every box that you're looking at, then you might want to at least consider playing them. And kind of like in Kevin Kisner, he's got a 29% advance rate, which is excellent for one of the number 2 seeds. Number 7, you got ourselves Zalatoris, Fox, English, and Putnam. This is one of the weaker groups out there, so if you're going to take Willie Z, I understand it, but I do think he's going to be extremely popular. And anytime you get a really popular player, you probably want to pivot. So love you, Willie Z, but I'm probably playing a Fox, an English, or a Putnam, or even all 3 of them. I expect all of them to be some of the lowest-owned players on the slate, and Willie Z to be one of the higher-owned players on the slate just because of matchup. And you can see, I only have him at a 31.5% advance rate, so it's not like I have him going out there and lighting up the field. Number 8, we've got ourselves Hovland, Kirk, Kim, and Kuchar. Kuchar has loved this event, has absolutely lit it up here. So you can see that's reflected with his advance rate is over 25%. Victor Hovland, though, is the one that I have my eye on. He's a great match player. He's shown that during college, shown it during his amateur days, and I think that he's the guy to pick out of Group 8 here, but I also do like Kuchar, kind of like a Kisner. I have a hard time fading these guys because over the years, they have not gone the ownership that they deserve. Us hardcore fans that are doing the research, that are looking at these match play records, are going to identify them as some of the top plays, but your casual fans out there are going to see the name value, some of those flashy, young, up-and-coming studs, and are going to get there a lot more often. Group number 9, we've got Morikawa, Day, Svenny, and Victor Perez. Svenny and Perez are going to be tough outs. So I have to say, and Perez has played well at this event before. In fact, I believe he finished in the top 8 one year. I know that for a fact. It might have even been better than that. And you have Morikawa and Day, and especially Day, who's coming in with form. Morikawa, who's been okay at this format of the past, where he has a even record 2-2-3. This is a tough group for me to decide between. I think that they're all pretty decent. There's not that one guy who's absolutely tanking in terms of the advance rate there. So yeah, I have to say group number 9 is a tough one. That's probably going to come down to ownership for me at the end of the day. Group 10, you have Finau, Kitayama, Bazainhout, and Moronk. If there's a number 1 seed that I just think you fade, I think it is a Tony Finau. He's expensive. He's probably still going to get some ownership. And the match play record is the worst of all of those captains. So I'm probably staying away there. Kitayama, Bazainhout, and Moronk aren't killers either. So there's not really one player that's sticking out here in terms of advance rate. So whoever's going to be the lowest owned of the bunch, or lowest owned of the bunch, are probably the guys that I'm getting to. Group number 11 here, we've got ourselves... There's only 3 players on there. We must have JJ Spawn got kicked down to the bottom here. I'm not quite sure about that. So we got ourselves JJ Spawn, Fitz, Thigala, and then Minwoo there. And Fitz is injured. I mean, we could see that last week. He really didn't play all that well. But he's not going to get any ownership, and he's a number 1 seed at $8,500. So even though my numbers hate him at 22.1%, I might get there because, I mean, sure, he's talked about the injury, and I think he might be using it as a little bit of an excuse. It was only 1 hole at the Valspar that completely tanked him, right? He missed the cut, 2 shots off the number. He made a +5 on his 3rd hole of the week. So quintuple bogey, if we want to use the actual term out there. We're going to keep an eye on Matty Fitz's ownership. If we get a little pivot play there as the number 1 seed, I might be a buyer, but the guy I have my eye on right there is Sahith Theegala. He's got the highest advance rate out of the group, and I think he's just got high upside. I think his game is built for this kind of format as well. Group 12, got Jordan Spieth. Whew, that was a tough pill to swallow watching that in person. But he's my pick to win this week. So it's an easy group for me to pick there. I'm taking Jordan Spieth. He's playing unbelievable golf. It's his home course, just like it was for Scottie Scheffler. And perhaps if it's not the other Texas Longhorn that takes it home this week, maybe it's Jordan Spieth. So yeah, I'm going in that direction. Not a surprise to most of you out there, I would imagine. Group number 13, Burns, Scott, Hadwin, and Power. This is, I would say, a relatively balanced group. So kind of like Finau, like the numbers don't love Sam Burns. He doesn't have experience at this course either, which isn't a huge deal, but it's definitely helpful to have that experience. So I like Adam Scott here. Adam Scott's the guy that I'm taking in most of my lineups. I think the price tag is fair. I think the record kind of speaks for itself. He has a ton of experience in playing in match play because of all his years over there at the President's Cup. So I like that for him. Number 14, the highest advance rate on the entire slate is Terrell Hatton, and it all comes down to his opponents, right? You've got Russell Henley as the next most expensive player, Griffin and Lucas Herbert. So it's a bunch of guys that have horrible records here, new timers. Lucas Herbert, who's in the worst form of anybody in the field. It should be an easy passing for Terrell Hatton, but I have to say this. Every bracket I've seen has taken Hatton to come out of this group. I've seen people betting Hatton this week. I've seen a lot of people talking about the good old Hobbit over there. So if he's going to, or the Angry Gnome, I should say, if the Angry Gnome is going to be chalky, if he's going to be 25, 30% owned, maybe you fade. I mean, I like him coming out of this group. The numbers like him, but if he's going to be 50% owned, if he's going to be up there with Scottie Scheffler in terms of ownership, might be something that I'm staying away from. Group number 15's a little bit more competitive. Sepp Straka, Davis Thompson, you see the numbers don't love them, but I think that Corey Connors might be the guy to keep an eye on here. Cam Young's going to get some ownership. I'm already playing a bunch of guys there in the 9K range. So Corey Connors might be the player that I'm sticking my flag behind there. If I was going to take a long shot on anybody, Davis Thompson's the one I'd take the shot on. He's an absolute bulldog. He's got that mentality you need to go out there and play match play. And he's only $6,200. He's never played here before, so we don't have any sort of like idea of how, skill set's going to translate, but he likes these greens. You can see on the Bermuda with the overseed, he's played 3 tournaments over that stretch, has gotten some experience, getting half a stroke per round on the surface. So that's a promising sign to see. And finally, the last group here, guys, we got ourselves Sungjae, Fleetwood, McNeely, and Poston. This is the group that's going to end up playing the Scottie Scheffler group, and I think somebody here, even if Scottie gets out of the group stage, could take him down because all 4 of these guys are live to win this group. You can see the highest win percentage is 27.5. The lowest is 22.3 for McNeely. And McNeely last year went 2-1 during the group stage. Absolutely went off. JT Poston 1-1, pretty decent record there too. Ball striking has been unbelievable for JT of late. He's definitely got the putter if he can get it heated up to go out there and win one of these 2. Fleetwood nearly won last week. Sungjae, he has a lot of experience on the President's Cup too when it comes to this. It would not surprise me if any of these players won this group. But more importantly, one of these guys is going to get hot, right? And to win this group, you're going to have to get hot. You're going to have to play some excellent golf and take on these other guys here. I mean, even McNeely and Poston, they're in form and they're perfect match play sort of players. I think whoever wins this group, very live to take down Scottie Scheffler. So that's kind of why I'm trying to fade Scottie, is some of the groups around him I think are going to be really tough to get through. And unless he's absolutely steamrolling the field, I think one of them is going to clip him off. So in terms of picking players here, I probably can't play Sungjae just based on how many other guys I already have in the 9K range. Tommy Fleetwood's probably going to be hard to fit in too. So it might be the Maverick and JT train, right? I told you guys I was impressed with their skill sets for this. So that's likely the direction I go with Group 16. But that's the idea throughout the entire poll. But most importantly, guys, just remember, this is a game theory week. This is a week to go out there, fade all of that chalk, because even the top-end seeds have just had a 33% advance rate. And that's even just to get to the knockout stages, let alone to try and get to the top 8 or the top 4. So if you're trying to decide between 2 players, both relatively evenly matched, one's chalky, one's not, I think it should be a relatively straightforward decision for you this week. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for this week's DFS preview. As I mentioned during the intro, we will be live tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern, so bring any of your questions along to that and we'll get them answered for you. Get ready to crush this week from the DFS and the prop side. And also remember to get into that community contest, right? If you want your lineup reviewed, you want me to give you a little bit of advice there on a Monday. Make sure to get into that. And of course, even if you're not going to be there for the live stream, to go out there after some bragging rights, right? It's a contest, community contest, meant to be a lot of fun, some shit talking to be had, and hopefully can learn a little bit in the process as well. So make sure to check that out. Link is down in the description. If you want access to all my picks, all my ownership, all of my modeling as the week goes on, make sure to check out the Patreon too. There's also a link in the description to that. It is $10 a month, gets you access to all of the spreadsheets that you see in my content throughout the week, all my prop stuff, and all of the showdown content I'm posting throughout the weekend, which for this week, there's a good chance that I'm covering Corrales on that end. So we're not gonna have showdown over there for match play. It's just not something that they do. So perhaps we delve into the, Corrales side, that alternate field event, and get it done there. So looking forward to it, guys. Comment down below who your top DFS play of the week is. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the content to come. And I'll catch you guys for the live stream tonight.